And welcome to News Today with me, Kamini Nyamani. Coming up, Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice urges government to intervene in the shortage of antiretroviral drugs, which has resulted in the rationing of the medication to more than 200,000 HIV/AIDS sufferers. Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture says removal of subsidies on premixed fuel is to ensure the practice of smuggling is curtailed. Ahead on the foreign front, interim Prime Minister of the Central African Republic says stabilizing of these stories and plenty more. Don't go away. Thanks for staying on News Today. In our first story, illegal sand winning is fast becoming a common feature at Atwase community in the Ayenswana district of the Eastern region. The phenomenon has led to the destruction of many farms and roads by the heavy trucks which haul the sand away. Haruna Yusuf Umpene reports from the Eastern region.
The destruction caused to this 5-kilometer road, constructed by On Company Limited and Jilcon Company Limited, as far as the residents are concerned, is evident that the sand winning operation will soon reduce the town to nothing. A retired educationist who doubles as an opinion leader in the community, Edmond Pai, noted their farmlands and crops have also not been spared.
It is now that the owners are being compensated, and nobody knows how the compensation is worked on. The contractor will come and tell you that this is what I've destroyed and this is what I want to give you. There is nobody there to make any form of assessment as to how much he should pay to those farmers. So many farmers are affected. That is it. Then coming to the road too is very, 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 very serious because the road is less than 2 years old.
The Queen of Atwase, Nanawo Abuama II, explained, though there have been attempts to reach some understanding with the sand winning company, very little has been achieved.
There is an hinge somewhere which I wasn't actually a bit happy with it. Before the project started, when I met with the contractor, he already have all the permit that's granted him to go on with the project. So I sat with a couple of the elders that gave him the permission to do the project. But they also gave me the same opinion that the contractor gave me. And I came personally myself to find out what exactly is going on. I mean, we sit with him and have a proper agreement with him, together with the leaders of the community. But when I came, the project was already going on, so I couldn't have much to say about it.
The NPP Member of Parliament for the Ayenswana constituency, Samuel Ayepaye, also had concerns about the sand winning operations. Haruna Yusuf Umpene's report from the Eastern region.
Now, the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice wants government to intervene in the shortage of antiretroviral drugs that have resulted in the rationing of medication to more than 200,000 persons living with HIV and AIDS. Deputy Commissioner Joseph Whittle says government would have to step in to save the situation. The Commission's call comes as the world commemorates World AIDS Day.
Although the prevalence rate of HIV/AIDS is said to be going down, the figures are still alarming. The 2012 statistics on HIV/AIDS shows that over 230 persons are living with the disease in the country, and more than 20,000 of them being children. 11,000 deaths were also recorded at the end of the year. Reports that the National AIDS Control Program is currently rationing ART drugs to persons living with the disease due to lack of adequate funds comes as a major source of worry to Shraj.
Government must begin to seriously consider how it can come in. Whoever is on HIV drugs must get the drugs on time, and we owe it to the people to those most at-risk populations to allow them to get what they deserve to live, because it's a rights issue. It's a live or die issue for them, and we need to approach it from that angle.
With the stigma and discrimination of persons living with HIV/AIDS still endure, STRA says it is collaborating with the Ghana AIDS Commission to protect and promote the rights of sufferers.
The fact that you have HIV doesn't mean that you should be prevented from having normal social life, among others. If that is the case, that amounts to a human rights violation. And this commission, through the web-based platform, would be able to better protect their rights. Our staff will now get in touch with the HIV person who has difficulties due to stigma, take down the complaint, and then the process begins from there.
Meanwhile, the Commission has also launched its 2013 Human Rights and Integrity Week. The week is to highlight the importance of human dignity and justice, and also interact with relevant stakeholders on ways of improving and championing human rights. The celebrations will be climaxed with the International Anti-Corruption Day and International Human Rights Day, which falls on December 9 and 10, which also coincides with the 20th anniversary of STRAJ.
The Badu Health Center in the Tyne district of the Bunuahafu region is in dire need of infrastructural expansion. Joy News correspondent Nestor Kafui Ajoma, who visited the center, says the antenatal unit, which was recently constructed, is already showing signs of dilapidation.
The Badu Health Center was relocated from Badu to its present site in 1997 and has since not seen any major development apart from this pavilion built by Bedumine Rural Bank for expectant mothers. This container serves as records room annex because the original one has been filled to capacity. This collapsed structure was a sanitation facility for patients who visit the health center. Having collapsed after a heavy downpour some weeks ago, this makeshift structure is now being used by patients who wish to attend to nature's call. Even though the health center can boast of 16 medical staff, only 2 semi-detached bungalows are available. The situation has forced most of the workers to stay far from the health center, making it difficult for them to attend to emergencies. Margaret Amor is the only midwife at the Badu Health Center.
Badu Health Center is a health center which is the second largest health center in the whole district, at the Tyne district. And as I'm talking, the health center is very small in the sense that the people coming to the health center is much more bigger than the health center itself. So if we are pleading, if government can do something about the health center to enlarge it or establish it a bit for us so that it can accommodate the people who usually come to the clinic.
The center has meanwhile taken delivery of some chairs donated by the Bedumine Rural Bank Ladies Association to augment seating in the outpatient department, which hitherto had just 2 long benches which were inadequate. The association also presented washing bowls, plastic brooms, as well as toiletries and consumables to enhance operations at the health center. Nestor Kafui Ajoma's report for Joy News.
Clinical pathologist Professor Ajiman Badu Akosa has called on the government to scrap the payment of nurses' trainee allowances. Instead, he suggested that the trainee nurses be introduced to students' loan schemes. Trainee nurses currently receive a little over 350 Ghana cedis as allowance every month, but the former Director General of the Ghana Health Service says this is detrimental to the development of the profession so far as increasing the numbers in the health sector is concerned. Citing the education sector as an example, Professor Akosa said the sector had increases in intake from 9,000 students to 15,000 as a result of the scrapping of the teacher trainee allowance. He noted the health sector could also increase its enrollment numbers should a similar strategy be undertaken. Ransford Jampo, a research fellow at the governance unit of the Institute of Economic Affairs, has described as a needless dissipation of scarce resource if efforts by several state agencies to produce their own biometric identity cards. He was speaking at a 3-day workshop organized by the local government ministry on synchronizing identity systems in Ghana.
At least 7 state institutions have already issued biometric IDs or are planning to collate biometric data on their clients in the country. They include the Electoral Commission, National Identification Authority, Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, National Health Insurance Authority, Controller and Accountant General, Passport Office and Ghana Immigration Service. Ransford Jampo, however, believes, apart from the undue waste of resources, it is a duplication of efforts and functions.
This is as a result of the multiple agencies of state that perform the same task of providing data that borders on identity. As we may all be aware, and indeed I heard the chairman mentioning some of the agencies, there are currently 7 agencies, state agencies, in the business of providing biometric data. In our view, this is a needless dissipation of scarce resources. It is also a waste of time and a duplication of efforts and functions that must not be condoned and tolerated in a developing country like ours.
The IEA pledged its support for the harmonization and synchronization of efforts aimed at developing a common biometric platform for the nation. The Minister for Local Government and Rural Development underscored the need for information communication technology in governance.
As a country, we need to have information on our population growth, rate of births and deaths, demographics, skills gap, rate of unemployment, locations of businesses and properties, revenue base, among others, in every settlement, community, city or district. These, you agree with me, are all very essential for enhancing evidence-based decision-making at the local level and thereby improve local governance.
Don't go away. News Today returns in a bit. You're welcome back to News Today. President Mahama says government of Ghana would embark on a renegotiation exercise with companies, especially those in the extractive industry, on new stability agreements. The president said the current stability agreements, which were signed for 20 years and beyond, were not favorable to government, since the players would continue to receive the same the same amount of royalties, even if prices of such commodities are rocketing on the world markets.
Going through the process of renegotiating them to make them fairer than they have been, especially the extractive industry, because of the destruction to the environment and all the other, adverse effects, that they have on the atmosphere. And we're competing in, cutting, each other to draw more investment. But I guess that we are the wiser now, and so we're looking at some of these agreements before. There are retention accounts that the companies insist on having, and they hold these retention accounts outside the country. I mean, we have first-class banks here. There's no reason why they cannot hold those retention accounts locally, so that those reserves are able to stimulate, the local economy. The transfer pricing is one of the issues that we're trying to do. Fixing the legislation, to prevent transfer pricing and deal hard with transfer pricing. We're also fixing the legislation to do with capital gains tax.
Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture Nayon Belijo has defended the removal of subsidies on premix fuel. According to the sector minister, this will help ensure the practice of smuggling of the commodity is curtailed.
I'm surprised that some fishermen are complaining about the price hike in premix. We started from a situation where premix was highly subsidized to the tune of about 70%. That led to a situation where some of the fishermen themselves engaged in diverting the premix supply to them selling it to others for money into their pocket. Middlemen got involved in premix and managed to get whole tankers diverted for sale at some filling stations for you and I to put in our vehicles as if we're buying V8 or some other highly priced petroleum product. The fishermen themselves started getting denied, being denied of premix to the point where they themselves appealed to the ministry that they were prepared to pay higher prices for premix if that will make premix abundantly available to them so that they can carry on with their trade, their enterprise. At the same time, the National Petroleum Authority had started a scheme in which they were gradually removing the subsidy in petroleum products over a period, including premix. The President, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, has made it known that he has also had discussions on the issue, and he has said that when the subsidy level gets to 50%, there should be a stop in the removal of further removal of premix for us to implement that for some time and then see what we can do next. To be subsidizing the premix at 50%, is something that should be appreciated. For premix, there are two ways of stopping it. NPA has indicated that they are trying to develop a traceability system, and I think they are talking about a chemical trace. If that is done, then it means that when a tanker loads premix, they are able to track it electronically from the point of departure to the point of delivery, and they will be able to tell that the tanker has veered off its course. So that is one way we're hoping to use to ensure that premix cannot be diverted. The second thing is the fishermen themselves, the beneficiaries of the premix, those who use it at the end point, where we have the London Beach Committee sale point. When premix is loaded in a tanker, they are informed your tanker has been loaded. The tanker is taken off and is on its way to your point and to arrive on this date. So if that date the tanker has actually delivered the product, you should report, they report back. So if the product has not been delivered, you should also find out from the source. We were expecting our product on this date. The product has not come. What has happened to it? The national security can get involved and trace, because you know the tanker, you know its number, you know the driver's name, you know the company, the oil marketing company, which is operating that tanker. So they can investigate and find out where the tanker went.
The Minister of Food and Agriculture, Clement Kofi Humado, says Ghana's food security resilience is under threat due to high levels of post-harvest losses. Addressing farmers at a forum in Accra, he said though the country is now self-sufficient in the production of major staples, about 700,000 worth of agricultural produce is wasted every year.
Abundant in Ghana, as is evident in the quantity of maize, rice and cassava that are found across the length and breadth of the country. According to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the country is now self-sufficient in the production of major staples, with the self-sufficiency gap closing from 60 to 30%. However, the boost in agricultural productivity has highlighted the extent of post-harvest losses.
Sustained productivity is challenged with climate change vulnerabilities, underrate fed agriculture, as well as high post-harvest losses, which stand at about 30%, and inefficient processing and value addition. This can negatively affect our food security resilience in the country.
The local demand for food produce is at an all-time high, with a wealthier and expanding population. For instance, Ghana is among the highest fish-consuming countries in the world, with each person consuming between 23 and 25 kilograms of fish a year, compared to a global average of 13 kilograms.
Our fish demand for 2012 was estimated at 968,000 metric tons, whilst our production was 486,000 metric tons, representing only about 50.2% of our requirement. A total of 175,000 metric tons of fish was imported at an estimated $157 million to make up for part of the deficit. While as a nation we have not been able to meet our fish requirements from local production, it is estimated that post-harvest loss accounts for 30% of local production.
At the Farmers Forum on post-harvest losses, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, Clement Humado, said understanding the dynamics of food waste in Ghana is key in tackling food security.
You don't just set a target without doing the fundamentals. So I called upon the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, in Ghana, the Wageningen University, which is very strong in post-harvest technology, and then the African Union also offered to provide some funds. And that team, which has worked for the past 2 months in Ghana, have finalized their report. So after the report, then we'll be able to sit down now and draw a plan and target the various crops for post-harvest loss reduction.
Clement Humado lamented some causes of post-harvest losses are outside the scope of his ministry, making efforts at reducing post-harvest losses more challenging. He was, however, optimistic difficulties can be overcome, especially in challenges with poor road infrastructure.
You know, the brewery industry, the one in Accra and Kumasi, they met me when I was appointed and we discussed this, the use of cassava starch for beer. And we discussed how we should go about it, and they chose to go the mobile processing way. I visited them in Hokwe last time, where they have pitched their mobile processor, and it's working fantastic. They have local buying agents who go to the farms and bring out the produce to where the processor is, and they pay them commission. And they are having materials every day for processing. And then they have coal vans that take them immediately to the breweries. So I believe, barring the reports that we are going to have, I think mobile processing is the way to go.
Executive Director of Center for Freedom and Accuracy, Andrew Awone, has instructed his solicitors to discontinue his suit against the sale of Merchant Bank to private equity fund Fortis at the Fast Track High Court. The center wanted the transaction giving away 90% shares of the bank for 90 million Ghana cedis to Fortis abrogated. It also prayed the court to place an injunction on the deal it claimed was not given the country value for money. When the case was called on Thursday, 28 November 2013, at an Accra Fast Track High Court, it was adjourned to December 5. Even before the parties could go back to the court on the adjourned date, lawyer for Center for Freedom and Accuracy, Egbert Fable, confirmed to Joy News that he has been instructed to stop pursuing the case at the Fast Track High Court. However, he disclosed that the case would now be fought at the commercial division of the High Courts. They have also gone to court to place an injunction on the sale again. The lawyer said his clients would now be seeking relief against 13 persons, including the Merchant Bank, Social Security and National Insurance Trust, NET for that matter, Bank of Ghana, Fortis and KPMG as first, second, third, fourth and fifth defendants respectively. The rest are one-time directors of the board of Merchant Bank. Off to India and the country's current account deficit, a key concern of narrowed narrowed sharply in the second quarter after a series of measures helped curb gold imports. The deficit fell to $5.2 billion during the July to September quarter, down from $21 billion during the same period last year. A current account deficit is the difference between inflow and outflow of foreign currency and occurs when imports are greater than exports. India's deficit had been widening, raising fears over its economic health. India's finance minister, P. Chidambaram, said the latest numbers indicated that the country was on target to contain the current account deficit. According to India's central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, the current account deficit stood at 1.2% of the gross domestic product during the quarter, down from 5% of GDP during the same period last year. That's it for business, but just before we begin the sports segment of news today, Dr. Maurice Ampao, founder of Legal Advocacy Foundation, also a private legal practitioner, has urged the country to look again at Article 146 of the Constitution, which allows the president to elect the Supreme Court justices. This comes after former Attorney General Martin Amidu has raised concerns about a committee set up by the Chief Justice Theodora Wood to investigate a leaked tape on which alleged misconduct of the Supreme Court justices who had the election petition case are purported to be said by former Deputy Minister of Communications, Victoria Hammer.
Hardworking as they are, almost for 4 months, sat on a daily basis. They should not be insulted in this way. People should not impute wrongdoing. So if wrongdoing have been imputed against them, and then the Chief Justice is giving them an opportunity to clear themselves, then people are reading other meaning. What do you want the Chief Justice to do? Now, if I were to the Chief Justice, look, this committee, set it aside. Now let the public have that perception. And then the perception is what Abedi is talking about, the internet. The way people are now started insulting the judges and accusing them of being biased, and then they've taken bribe. Is that what you want? Right.
So we've wrapped it up with Martin Amidu's statement, but yesterday the committee couldn't sit because Sir John here was out of town. Vicky, we don't know why she wasn't there. They gave reasons. I think they will send a letter to show that they are willing to come back in this because these things happens. So the committee will continue. I think they would like to invite Mama Oyile later, and then they will give them a hearing notice as that we are meeting on this day. We also understand they can decide not to go. Oh, if you don't go, do you know what it does? Jesus Christ! If Vicky decides not to go, what it means is that perception has not been cleared. Now, then the committee report will say that the judges have responded, and they will come out hardly to deny. So you cannot say that their denial is against them. Now, Nana Lita can go and say that I have never. Now it's up to Vicky. That is if there is any truth to this. Yes. Now you made it. It's up to Vicky. Now if it doesn't come, what is happening is that then we are expecting the committee can come out with a report. But now we are expecting Nana Oyelita and the judges to take an action against Vicky because they are damaging their reputation. You see, you make an allegation against me. That's a turn the case could take. It could take. You see, because this committee is an opportunity for everybody to come and clear yourself, and especially for Vicky and Co to come for the judges to interrogate them. You see, and then for Nana Oyelita also to interrogate Vicky. Vicky, why did you hear? Let me know who told you, so that I can confront you and the person to clear myself. But if you don't do that, what is going to if say Vicky decides not to go, it won't stall. It will not stall. The committee will go ahead. They can either subpoena or they will go ahead and say that this is their report. This person appeared and denied it. Do they have the power to subpoena? They do. They can subpoena. Now,
you come out with a report and say that these are the findings. A appeared, A refused to appear. Reasons why. Now it is up to the one who is alleged to have played that role to take an action. And I don't expect the Nana Olita to sit down and clap when Vicky doesn't appear. Your reputation is at stake.
Right.
And the Nine decisions have to clear their
unfortunately,
you know, but two judges have been transferring high court judges. It's administrative power.
Right.
And then promoting. All these things is granted by the Constitution. So, but my worry is that please, Ghanaians, I beg you, the Chief Justice, the unwarranted attack, the threats, and then the intimidation should stop. The women like you should stand up against anybody who want to run down the woman. He has done.
Sports is brought to you by Tigo and it's next. You're welcome back. Now, Burkina Faso Football Federation has lodged an appeal against FIFA's decision that turned down an initial complaint against Algeria in the 2014 World Cup playoff. The FBF chairman, Sinta Sangari, says that the tickets to Brazil 2014 has been stolen, accusing the referee of the encounter of complicity. After all we saw in Bleda on November 19, the FBF can claim that disqualification to next year's World Cup was stolen with the complicity of the referee. Now that's a quote. The disallowed goal from Charles Kabori and the additional time which was not exhausted are examples of the awful things that happened during the game. FIFA last week rejected Burkina Faso's initial complaint and confirmed Algeria's qualification to the tournament. Algeria won the two-legged tie on a 3-3 aggregate, having scored 2 goals in the away fixture. According to officials, FIFA will give a final ruling by December 5. Right, so finally, the BBC African Footballer of the Year 2013 has been unveiled, and Manchester City's Yaya Toure took the prize. Let's take a look.
Now we have a winner, and this morning I traveled all the way to his club's training ground to hand over the trophy to a very happy Yaya Toure. I'm here at the boot room of Manchester City's Carrington Training Centre. With me is the 2013 BBC African Footballer of the Year, Yaya Toure. Congratulations, Yaya. It's my pleasure to hand you this award.
Me too. Thank you very much.
I mean, tell me, how special is this award for you? Because I know you've wanted to win it for a long time.
Yeah. I think I'll be nominated for 5 times, and 5 times in the awards. I think it was amazing, you know, and all the time was quite difficult, you know, because as well you have to give full credit to the opponent, you know, because they deserve as well. And I think this 5th time was fine for me. I'm very happy, I'm very proud to have it.
And the fact that you've won it now at the 5th time of asking, does that make it even more special?
Yeah, of course, you know, because this 5th time in the world was quite difficult because I was having the opponent, you know, they have a level unbelievable, you know, and as well in 2013 we have quite fantastic players as well, you know, they all can deserve it as well, but I think the chance is going to me, and I think I'm very happy with that.
One happy Yaya Toure. That'll be all for sports. I'll be right back. You're welcome back to News Today. Just before we get into international news, government has been responding to President John Dramani Mahama's alleged involvement in debt recovery of Merchant Bank involving engineers and planners, a company owned by his brother, Deputy Information Minister Felix Kwachiofosu, has been addressing media men at the Flagstaff House at the daily media briefing.
Minister for Information and Media Relations has adequately spoken to this matter, so I will not want to belabor the point when he has dealt clearly with the issues, except that it is important that even as the media holds the feet of government to the fire of accountability, they do so with due respect for the ethics of their own profession. It does not help to bandy about distortions and, in some instances, palpable inaccuracies. It does not help in the fight against corruption at all. The facts must be put out clearly. My minister has clearly put out the facts that what was reported yesterday was inaccurate, and that there was absolutely no point where there was any intervention from the presidency to stop Merchant Bank or any other organization for that matter from carrying out its mandate of pursuing any entities that owed it. At our level as ministers, we receive such petitions on a daily basis, and we do just that. And every citizen of Ghana is entitled to the same services that everybody else gets. You cannot discriminate on the basis of familiar relationships or other relationships. The President of Ghana, the Presidency of Ghana, is accountable to every single Ghanaian. And therefore, a situation cannot be had where people are discriminated against when they have indeed petitioned the presidency on a matter that they feel aggrieved about. And I don't believe that there's any room for speculation about conflict of interest. None arose whatsoever. And most importantly, at no point did the presidency stop Merchant Bank from going for a repayment of a loan that they gave out. That report that was put out was completely inaccurate. And I believe that the news organizations that put that out owe it to themselves. The ethics of their profession requires that they do the right thing, render the necessary apologies, and clarify for the benefit of their own viewers and audiences and listeners that what they put out was inaccurate.
So you had, let's check out some international news now. The interim Prime Minister of the Central African Republic, Nicolas Tingai, says stabilizing its violence-plagued country will require foreign financial aid in addition to the deployment of international troops. He said the CAR's economy has been paralyzed by a crisis that began in March when rebels overthrew the president of the impoverished nation. The coup led to the formation of a weak interim government that has been unable to stop former Seleka rebels from committing rights abuses across the landlocked country. Prime Minister Tingai said he will ask for foreign aid to help revive the CAR's economy when he attends a Paris summit of French and African leaders that begins Friday. France is the Central African Republic's former colonial ruler. The French government therefore sent 200 additional troops to the Central African Republic's capital, Bangui, on Sunday to strengthen a contingent of French and regional African forces that are trying to stop the violence. France plans to raise its troops levels in the CAR to 1,000 in the coming weeks. Now, the troop contingent from the Economic Community of Central African States is due to expand into an African Union-led force of 3,600 personnel this month. In Nigeria, authorities have imposed a 24-hour curfew in the main northeastern city of Maiduguri after suspected Islamic militants attacked an Air Force base and army barracks. Residents in Maiduguri say hundreds of suspected Boko Haram militants besieged the installation early Monday. A Defense Ministry spokesman said 24 insurgents died in a shootout with soldiers, but he did not say whether or not there were any civilian casualties. Ilbrad Ibrahim is an international news analyst. He's joined us over the telephone, and we'll talk about Boko Haram for a while. Hello, Ilbrad.
Hello, Kimberly. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. Boko Haram is hit again. Is this indicative the military is perhaps losing the fight against Boko Haram?
No, we've reiterated this time and again that, Kimberly, you don't only use the barrel of the gun to solve a deep-seated problem like the issue of Boko Haram in the northern part of Nigeria. Other militancies could be beaten into non-existence, just as we saw in the M23 rebels. and then Joseph Kony is just in its final throes as well. But a militant that is based upon religion is very difficult to kill. And therefore, I think Boko Haram, unfortunately, have become exponentially emboldened over the past 3 years. The attack they just pulled off during the wee hours of yesterday was modeled upon attacks we see in Pakistan and Afghanistan, where militants have the nerve to breach the perimeters, security perimeters of sprawling military bases and take the fight to soldiers.
And that was the fear. At the point, the U.S. had decided to blacklist Boko Haram as a terrorist group. I remember you were saying that this could either mean that they were going to get support from other terrorist groups. What do we then read into this happening?
What we've just seen could be part of the vestiges of that. They've now been given the badge of honor of global militancy, that now they can, draw from the experience and expertise of other militants in other parts of the world. And around 2008, a young man in the northern part of Nigeria, in the city of Maiduguri, did not have the nerve to stand up against an ordinary policeman. Then they graduated into being able to ransack police stations, and now they are attacking a big air base like this one, and they immobilized up to 5 helicopters yesterday. So I think there should be a two-pronged approach to the problem. Much as we seek a military solution to the issue of Boko Haram, there should be a political settlement as well. Because if care is not taken, in the next 3 years, we can only expect one of two consequences. It's either the Nigerian security forces are able to decimate Boko Haram, or very soon Boko Haram will be hitting the presidential palace in Abuja, because they feel so emboldened and buoyed up by the military successes they have chalked against the security forces on the battlefield. So it's an evil omen, unfortunately, because Boko Haram is spiraled out of control for a neighbor like Nigeria.
What can the government of Nigeria do? They tried to engage in talks. We didn't see what came up of that. And what can they do in the situation?
Okay, I think they missed the boat quite too early in the crisis. Initially, when they flew loads of forces into the north in 2009, they used the heavy-handed approach. We saw footage of people who were unarmed, and they were shot at gunpoint, at close range, and all that. So when you do that, you galvanize the local population against you. And the people have already been galvanized, and now they've got an unseasoned, pool of arms and money to carry out an insurgency. And come to talk of talks, there have been times we've had reports that Boko Haram would send middle-tier commanders to go sit around the negotiation table with interlocutors coming from the quarters of Goodluck Jonathan. But these Nigerians will pounce upon these people and tell international media that they've captured the spokesperson of Boko Haram, or they've captured the field commander of Boko Haram. So Boko Haram does not trust the Nigerian party as someone they can sit around the negotiation table with. So it's one of two things. It's either we fight all out and defeat them, or expect the worst in the next few years.
Thank you very much, Irbad. We'll leave it here for now. Irbad Ibrahim is an international news analyst. We've been talking Boko Haram and their latest attack in Nigeria. Let's go to... So for international news, let's check out some showbiz now. And a Baden rap artist who goes by the stage name 730 has won the second edition of the music talent show Big in Ghana. 730 beats 3 other contestants to emerge the second winner of the talent hunt show.
The finale of the second edition of the Big in Ghana Talent Hunt drew a large number of patrons to the Obra Sports at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle here in Accra. There were performances from some hip life artists, Pope Skinny, and a host of others. The 4 finalists, Nabi, Tom Tom, 730 and Bullet, put up a last-minute impressive show with the hope of winning the ultimate prize at stake. But at the end of the day, 730 emerged winner. He takes over from Bright, the winner of the maiden edition. For his prize package, 730 gets a professional recording contract, a free video shoot plus promotion, and cash money.
Entertainment critic Francis Dooku has called the bluff of Ghanaian dancehall artist Shatta Wale to sue him if he so wishes. The latter threatened to sue the ace critic for a piece he wrote about his performance at the just-ended Big Eruption concert in Accra, which featured international R&B artist Akon.
It all started a few days after the Big Eruption concert in Accra. Dancehall artist Samini was rated the best performer of the night by most of the audience, even though his colleague Shatta Wale was the toast of the night. But it appears an article, Samini Floors Shatta Wale, authored by Francis Dooku, a columnist for the graphic Showbiz, infuriated the musician, who has since threatened to sue the paper and the columnist if they continue to write about him. Appearing on the white carpet on Joy News, however, Francis Dooku said he is not moved by the legal threat.
I went to a show and what I saw was what I wrote. I wouldn't write anything different to give me the opportunity again. He was the most expectant artist on the day, on the night. You know, but I mean, in terms of performance, he wasn't the best performer on the night. But the point about not writing, of course, if I go to a show, I'm writing and I'll write. If he has an issue, he should go to court.
With the festive season just around the corner, Showbiz has gathered Shatta Wale has a number of concerts lined up. Well, what remains to be seen is if Francis Dooku will go ahead to review Shatta's performances and if the musician will indeed carry through his threat to sue him when he does.
You're watching News Today, and here are major stories. Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice wants government to intervene in the shortage of antiretroviral drugs, which have resulted in the rationing of medication to more than 200,000 HIV and AIDS sufferers. Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture says removal of subsidies on premix fuel is to ensure the practice of smuggling is curtailed. Interim Prime Minister of Central African Republic says stabilizing it. It's a wrap for this hour. My name is Kemini Nyamani. I'm not grateful for your company. Let's do this again same time tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of our programs. Goodbye from me.